You know, Dan, I really relate to that girl in the video. You know, there's so many times you get up and you're just hungry for something, but you don't know what, and none of the snacks seem to be the right hit.
That's pretty much the story of my life. At certain times in the evening, see, my wife and I love to have dessert together every night. So it's always that question. We go to the fridge. What is it that really feels like it's going to satisfy me tonight?
But you know, we're not really just talking about desserts and snacks. But I found in life, Dan, that a lot of times there's some hunger, like on a, I hate to use the word spiritual, but on an emotional or spiritual plane where, you know, I can think of times where everything was going right. You know, I was dating the girl I wanted to date. Things are going well in school. Things are going well in my private life. And there was just sometimes you'd lay down and there was something missing. Have you ever felt like that?
Absolutely. I think everyone feels that way at some point. That even when things are going right, but especially when things aren't going well, and when something bad happens, when there's illness in the family, you know, when you just get a bad grade, you get cut from the team, whatever it is, there's all of those things that are going on. But there's, in the good and the bad, there's always some sort of hunger for something more.
You know, I think back to, you're not going to remember this decade, but the decade of the 80s. That's the 1980s. I was a running back at LSU, and when I started, I was the 7th string running back. And it was actually worse than that because we ran a pro set backfield, which meant that you really had 2 tailbacks in the game. So being 7th string at this position was really like being the 14th running back on the team. I remember going to my first game thinking, man, 3 of these 4 buses are going to have to wreck on the way to the game for me to get in. Well, as
you never hoped for that. But
I never, well, I won't speak to that. But as the season went on, I moved up to 2nd string. I became the 2nd string punt returner. Everything I had worked for was kind of, all of my dreams were coming true. And I remember coming home one day from practice with just kind of this, something's missing. I couldn't put my finger on what it is that's missing. And it took me a long time to figure it out.
Did you figure it out?
I think I have. And I think what I've come to realize, Dan, is that there's nothing that's created that's going to actually completely satisfy me. I'm convinced that this hunger that we all have, and I think we all share the hunger, every person watching this video has that time late at night or early in the morning or sometime during the day where you feel like there's something more that my heart desires. And I think that something is God. I think that our hearts were created by our Father, and He made them with a natural inclination to long for home, to long for Him. St. Augustine put it beautifully. Mm-hmm. You know, St. Augustine chased after a lot of created goods, trying to make himself happy. And in the end, he realized that, and his famous quote, "Our hearts are restless, God, until they rest in you."
Mm-hmm. What a cool message that is. And I remember times, you know, going to bed at night, you sort of think ahead to the next day. And I remember this in high school and in college as well. And I was thinking ahead, and there would always, in my mind, I was always looking for what is it that I'm looking forward to tomorrow that'll make my day worth it. And it was such a weird feeling. And I remember when I realized that every day I was looking forward to something that I thought was going to fill me up. But every day I had to look again. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I realized, you know, when I wake up in the morning that I give my life to God and allow Him to fill me up, that I stopped looking for that. And I started to just live according to who I was. And I love the quote from Pope Benedict that was, "The world promises comfort. You're not made for comfort, you're made for greatness." And that's what we're always kind of seeking, that comfort in the world. Throws these things out there, this power, money, fame, whatever it is, and it never satisfies. But you're not even that, but you're not made for that. You're made for greatness, and the only way to get it is to allow God to fill you up.
And because you're made that way, you can't find happiness in those other places. And you know, this isn't just the two of us talking. We're recording this the day after Gia Alamon's funeral. She was, I don't really know the actress, but apparently she was starred on The Bachelor. Mm-hmm. And you know, the weird thing, Dan, is I Googled, because I couldn't remember her name, actress and suicide, and the number of hits that came up.
Right.
I mean, we all know stories of people who seem to have had it all, and they were so unhappy. Well, how is that possible? If the world's message is right, that these things are going to make you happy, we shouldn't find examples of Michael Jacksons or Gia Alamans or some of these other people that we find that have everything and they're miserable.
Well, I know the story of Gia, but then recently too, there was one of the star actors from Glee, which is a very popular show, died of a drug overdose. It's funny if we're talking about it, and it's not like people may not look at us and be like, oh yeah, they're famous, they're popular, there's the people that I want to be like. But in reality, we look at the world and we can really say actors, musicians, whoever, people that we would say football players, pro athletes, look at them and we could honestly say, the Hernandez receiver from New England is on trial. And there's a lot of things that are going on right now, and to say that they're fulfilled, I don't know that anyone would really be able to look at that and honestly say that that's the case. And
then we look at Mother Teresa, or you look at Pope Benedict, who walked away from the papacy.
Walked away from power.
You look at those folks, and there's something that emanates from them. There's a peace and a serenity that shouldn't be there if the world is right. So, if you're hungry for something, if you find that there's just something that my heart longs for, welcome to humanity. I think that's because our Father made your heart just like He made ours.